Hello everyone. Imagine you're asked to design a dashboard like this, such that once you enter somebody's name, their full name, it returns their email address and the donations they made. How do you do that? We actually use lookup functions for this. So you're welcome to my channel, and in this video I'll be teaching you the different types of lookup functions and how we use each of them to design interesting things like this. But first of all, what are the lookup functions? Lookup functions in Excel are formulas that we use to search for a specific data within a table or range and return related information from another column or from another row. So I search for this value. For example, let us do that. Let me say I'm searching for some ideas, and it returns a specific value from another column, like their email address or their donations, or from another row. So once I hit enter, it tells me some ideas' email address and how much the person donated. That's what lookup functions actually do. And we have several types. We'll be looking at 4 in this video very quickly: the Vlookup, the Hlookup, the index match, and the Xlookup. So what's the Vlookup function? V stands for vertical. The Vlookup searches for a value. In fact, that's what I used here. It searches for a value in the first column of a range and returns a corresponding value in the same row from another column. So like in this example, I searched for some ideas and it returned the value in another column but in the same row, corresponding value. So it returned their email address. We also use this to return their donations. So that is the Vlookup I used here, in combination with another function, just to make sure that errors don't show up the way they show up by default. Okay, but that's by the way. So what's the syntax? Let's delete all of this. What's the syntax for the Vlookup? Let me leave some ideas name here, and let's look at the syntax for Vlookup. So I just type in my Vlookup, and the first thing is the lookup value. So I will just say I8, right? Yes. Lookup value. The next thing is the table array. Table array, the entire table where you want to get the information from. So I select the entire table. All right, let's go back up. That's Shift Control right arrow and Shift Control down arrow. Yeah. And or you could just say my table is from A2 to G1475. That also works. The column index number. First of all, what column are we trying to get a value from? That's the email address column. So that is column 3, 1, 2, 3. So the column index number will be 3. And then the range lookup. 2 values here. Is it an approximate match or an exact match? I want an exact match. So I will say false because I don't want approximate values. And once I hit enter, it gives me some ideas' email address from the mail address column. Let's do the same thing for the donations. Let's just repeat it instead of copying and adjusting. Let's just repeat it. So I'll say Vlookup, and then what is my lookup value? I8 yet again. And what is the table array? A2 to G1475. And then the index number. Donations is in number 6. A, B, C, D, E, F. F is number 6. And then I want an exact match, so I'm going to say false. And once I hit my enter key, it tells me the person's donation. Cool, that's by the way. Now the next type of lookup function is the Hlookup. Now since V stands for vertical, H definitely will stand for horizontal. Where do we use that? We actually use it in situations like this. Let me go to this other sheet where your table is arranged horizontally. You have in this case our table is arranged vertically. We have our headers at the top and then information for each header arranged vertically under each header. For Hlookup or for horizontal tables, we have the information arranged maybe to the right, or the headers arranged to the right, and every information under each header is arranged horizontally. So if your table is arranged this way, which tables are really arranged as, anyway, you can use the Hlookup. So let me still enter the name here, some ideas, and then by the way, it's not case sensitive. What's the syntax? Hlookup. So the same thing, lookup value, that will be B12. Table array, I don't have this memorized, so let me just Shift Control right arrow, Shift Control down arrow, and then let's go back to the right and see. Then my comma, and then the row index number for email addresses or mail addresses, row index number is 3, and then the range lookup false. I want exact match, so I say false, and it returns some ideas' email address. How about for their donation? Let's just be fast and let's copy this and then only adjust the index, the row index number. So that will be this. So for donations, row index is row 6. So I just say row 6, and that does that. So that's for Hlookup. The next one is the index match. We actually combining two functions. Let's go back to this table. We have the index. Let me just have those in caps. That's not how to spell index. And then we have the match. What do we use the index for? Simple. The index function returns the value of a cell based on a given row and column number. So if, let's just look at the syntax, index, and it says which table, that's the entire array. I just want it to be the entire array, A2 to A1475. It says row number, let's just at random select row 100 and column 5. So what value is at row 100 and at column 5 in our table? Ouch, a little error here. Let us see. Oh, this is not A1. This is supposed to be G, my entire table. I beg your pardon. So it tells me value 4424. But row 5 is actually a date. We have dates values in row 5, so I have to format this as a date. So let me come here very quickly and say short date, and it tells me the value you have at row 100. Sorry, I meant column 5 is actually a date, not row 5. Column 5 is actually date entries, so I will have to format this as date. So in row 100, column 5, what do we have? We have date entries. Beautiful. That is actually what the index function does for us. You have the column number and row number. It gives you what is at that cell, more like the intersection of the row and column number. Beautiful. How about the match function? Let us look at the syntax. What the match function actually does is that it tells us, you give it a value, a lookup value, and you tell it where you are looking it up from, and then it gives you the row number. That's it. It just gives you the row number. So I'm telling it I want to look up this value. Okay, I12, and where am I looking it up from? Here, that's E2 to E1475, and then the match type is 0, and it tells me it is in row 100. So what does the match function do? It brings up the row number. What does the index function do? You give it the row number and the column number, and it tells you the value there. Are you seeing that? So if I am able to provide the row number and the column number, it will tell me what value is there. However, there are situations where I may not know the row number. All right, but I know the value I am trying to look up, but I don't know it's the row number. So I can combine index and match to say, match, provide me the row number of this value, even though I don't know the value. Provide me the row number of this value, supply that row number to the index, so that in combination with the column number, I can look up the value in that particular area. Okay, so what is that saying? Let us see how we can apply it here. Let me come down here, let me copy this table and drop it here. I don't want those drop downs, so I remove them, and then let me leave some ideas. Let me remove this entries here. So let's look at how we will use that. So I want to look up the email address for this person, so I will say index, and then where am I looking at the entire table? A2 G1475. Now the row number, I don't know the row number. Let me assume I don't know the row number for this particular person, so I will ask match function to get me the row number for this name. So I'm going to say match, and lookup value is some ideas. Let me use that will be I15, and then the lookup array is A2 to A1475. That's actually the column where this value is found, and then the next thing is the match type, exact match. So this will give me the column number. So what am I saying? Now I have the table, I have the row number. Now which column do I want to pick the information from? Email address is in column C, which is 3, index number 3, and that gives me the email address. It's a little complex, but if you just pause the video a little bit, listen to it over and over again. So what is it doing? Index ordinarily will say row number, column number, it gives me that. But in case you don't know the row number, you can just use the match to supply the row number of a particular value. That is how we use the index and match. Let's just write index and match here. Yeah, and this is our Vlookup. Yep. Now, so we have done our Vlookup, we have done our index and match, we have looked at our Hlookup. The last one now is the Xlookup. The Xlookup trumps all these other lookups. It's actually simple, it's actually straightforward. Let me say this at this point. For the Vlookup, for example, there is one disadvantage with the Vlookup. The disadvantage is this: if my I'm looking up the names and I'm using to trace values to the right of that particular column. If this column, for example, is at the end here or somewhere in the middle, I cannot use it to trace values to the left. So for example, if full names is, let's say, in column D, I cannot use it to trace email address, which is actually to the left. That's one disadvantage of Vlookup. I think Hlookup also has that disadvantage. I can only pick full name and use it to trace values that are down. If the names are down here, I cannot use it to trace values that are above. But Xlookup doesn't have any of those limitation. Index match doesn't also have that limitation, but index match can be a little confusing. Xlookup doesn't have that limitation. The only challenge is that Xlookup is not found in earlier versions of Excel. It can only be found in newer version, more recent versions like 2019 and above. So I am using 2016, and if you are using a lower version like this, I beg your pardon, you may want to switch to Google Docs or WPS. I have my WPS here, so I will just open it and then use it to do the same thing. So let us still have our sum ideas here, for example, and then let's look at the syntax for our Xlookup. So I will say Xlookup. The first thing is the lookup value, that is my I8 again, and then the lookup array. Where is that value found? A2 to A1475. And then the next thing, let's just come to our formula bar here so that it will be very clear. The return array, what value do I want to return and which array is it found? That is my mail address, and that is in C2 to C1475. The next, if it is not found, I can skip that just by adding an extra comma. I'll skip that argument. And the next one is match mode. I always like using my match mode of 0. I always like entering a match mode, very important. The last one now, if I hit another comma, is the search mode, whether to search from the first to the last, last to the first, I can skip that. So let's just cancel that and stop at our match mode. We hit our enter and it gives us our our value, the email address. We'll just do the same thing just for the sake of repetition so that we can just look at that again. So I have my Xlookup, and the first value, let's come up here. The first value is my lookup value, I8, and the lookup array A2. A2 to A1475, and then the return array, this is donations. Donations is in F2 to F1475. And then if not found, let's skip that, match mode 0, and it returns this. Now, as I said earlier, Xlookup is very flexible. Even if the full names are somewhere in the middle here, it will still trace it. Can we do that? Can we do that? Should we do that? Okay, for the sake of time, let's just do that. Only that's going to mess up our formula a little bit. So let me just insert one column here, pick everything here, Control C, and then paste it here, and then let's delete this. Delete. Yeah, our formula now has an issue. So let us start all over again. This time around, we want to pick the email address which is to the left. So let me just delete everything, and then we start again. So Xlookup, I8, yes, lookup array. It is now, I beg your pardon, I don't have my full names here, please. Let's forget about that. But it is now in C2 to C1475. And then the next one, the return array, what do I want to return, is in B2 now, right to the left, B1475. And then if not found, skip that, match mode 0, close my bracket, and it gives me that. If you try this, which I advise you to go ahead and try it, switch or bring the column, the name, the full name column somewhere in the middle for Xlookup, sorry, for Vlookup and Hlookup, and try and see if it's going to work. It's not going to work. So I can do that. Let me just adjust this a little bit. My lookup array is no longer found. So let me replace it now. It is now in C2 to C1475, and that gives me my value. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any question, please always feel free you are free to come to the comment section and ask me your question. I will be very glad to respond and to answer. And if you enjoyed it, once again, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you will know when I post another interesting video. All right, and then don't forget to like. Please hit that like button. It's going to help our video and our channel a lot, matter of fact. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Bye.